After the success of Superman 1 and 2, it was inevitable that we were going to get Superman 3, and with Richard Donner now completely out of the picture, it was left to director Richard Lester to complete this film and essentially build it from scratch. He got a chance to show what he could do without coming on the back of something that Donner had already built. This was really his opportunity to give us his complete vision of Superman. What we get is definitely a Richard Lester film. If you look at what I said about his cut of Superman 2, it really does feel like all he brought to that film that wasn't Richard Donner's stuff was gags, cheap humour, visual gags, that kind of thing. And here he builds an entire film on that. Yeah. So if you want to see a Superman film that's essentially like caricature-ish with a lot of visual gags in it and half of the screen time being taken up by a stand-up comedian doing his, well, whatever his thing is. I can't say I've ever watched any Richard Pryor stand-up, but certainly what he offers here in this film, it ain't working for me. He gets given so much screen time under the assumption that what he's doing will entertain and be really funny, and it's not. There is room there for his character to support the story, that, you know, I can see what they're going with. We just don't need half the screen time that he's given. The stuff that his character does in a story sense of the word, how he enables the plot, I can get that, but you can half the screen time by taking out most of the physical pratfalls that he gets up to. Superman in this feels almost like a secondary character at times. It's not entirely clear what his arc is. His arc, almost, you kind of stumble into it by accident, I think, halfway through the film. Once he goes bad and you realise that, okay, that's what they're doing. It's taken an hour to get there, but that's what they're doing. So they've had this whole meandering around for the first half of the film in which it's all leading to Superman being split in two, and yeah, we get to see what he's like when the shackles come off, when the reins come off, and he no longer has his moral compass, and it's like, okay, now what are we going to do with that? That's the conflict there, but what are we going to do with it? Not much, to be honest. There's a fight scene in this between Clark Kent and Superman where, his bad self is split from his good self. And I always remember that from a kid. Stuck with me from when I was a kid. And I watch it now and I'm just left scratching my head thinking, why? Lester doesn't really know how to shoot action. So again, there's bits in it that, it just feels stilted, to be honest. What should be quite an exciting action set piece between two Supermen just feels quite stilted, quite wooden. Lester was known on his films for doing a 3-camera setup, which would speed up production. He'd get stuff in the bag, in the can, so to speak, really quickly. Keep a film on schedule, which obviously producers like that kind of thing. Means more money stays in their pocket. But it also means that a lot of the scenes feel stilted in the way that they're shot because actors aren't free to roam. We've got 3 cameras on them. You need to stay in these positions, and so that we get coverage on all sides. It's just like, yeah, it affects the way it looks, and how this looks is pretty wooden, pretty stilted throughout most of it. Now, there is a few things in here that I do like. I love Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang. Big Smallville fan, so that could be bias. It could be some bias on my part creeping in. But I just find her to be warmer as a human being, to say Margot. I don't mean that Margot Kidder was a cold human being. I just mean from a performance standpoint, I find more warmth comes from Annette O'Toole. And that the same can be said with her performance in Smallville. It's what always made her so watchable in Smallville, is that humanity and that warmth that she exudes. I just feel like, unfortunately, she's a token. She's not here to really be given a strong, thorough character arc. What would have been great is to still have Lois in this. She pops up for a cameo, couple of random cameos, beginning and the end of the film. But actually, what would have been better, if you are going to get Margot Kidder back at all, then have some competition. Have the themes of the second film be explored even more. We've got Superman at the end of the second film having to essentially make a choice that he can't date. He can't have a woman. He can't settle down and have that life. It's either that or the superheroing. You can't do both because if you try to do both, one affects the other. And that was essentially the choice that was made at the end of the second film. So it feels like we've backtracked here. It feels like we've taken 2 steps back, and he's just, he's trying to get with Lana Lang. He's flirting with her. His old feelings are being reignited, and he starts trying to kind of date her in a roundabout way. That's how it feels anyway. Really, he goes out for a picnic with her on a field, but it does feel like a date. It feels like there's romance there. And that element of romance, if you're going to have it, then why not play up the competition? You've got Lois Lane, who, based on the first 2 films, is essentially the love of Clark's life, Superman's life, and then into the fray, this woman who was the girl that he had a childhood crush on. Bring them together and let sparks fly between them, so that really the conflict comes between those 2 rather than anything else, because it just, again, like I say, it feels like Clark as a character is backtracking here. He's come to a particular moment in his life where he's had to make a decision, and then here it's almost like whatever. The villain in this feels like a knockoff Lex Luthor. I feel like, quite frankly, you may as well just get Lex Luthor, find a way to work him back into the story. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen because there was no way Gene Hackman was going to come and work for Richard Lester. He'd made that clear with the second film. So instead, they bring in this kind of, Robert Vaughn, second-rate Lex Luthor. Robert Vaughn ain't too bad in this, to be fair. He's all right. It's just that what he's been given to work with, there's only so much you can do. And as I say, he just comes off as a second-rate Lex Luthor. There's some stuff towards the end of the film with this AI that's created that as a child scared me half to death. It's got to be said. It was a vivid image that I always remember of the woman getting turned into this AI life form and attacking Superman. Like I say, it scared me as a child. I watch it now and there is still something about it that has a creep factor. That I watch it and I think, for children, it is a bit much. When this woman's getting taken over, it's quite full on for a PG movie. So that still sticks in the mind. It still has some impact. Although the battle itself all seems a little bit, how they get to it, it's just the fact that this guy can be this computer whiz and build this machine that ultimately, it just, gets a bit Skynet, but not in a believable way at all. It is, we are totally in the roots of 1940s, 1950s comic books here, which obviously would have been the kind of comic books that Lester's era would have been raised on. So fair play to him. He's taking it back to what he considers to be the comic book roots. By today's standards and how comics are that I've read, this doesn't do it for me. Ultimately, this is a film that feels really unfocused, in large part because of the humour that is injected throughout. We have completely perfunctory sequences that just seem really extended and go the opening sequence is just this non-stop barrage of physical humour I'm just like, what world have we entered into here? Because it ain't the world that was set up by Donna. It feels really disjointed, really haphazardly put together. It doesn't have the epic feel that Donna brought to the universe. It's just there. Stuff's just happening. It feels unfocused, and Richard Pryor takes up far too much screen time. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5, and any of that really is just down to pure nostalgia, I think. Annette O'Toole, Christopher Reeve, still great as Superman. A few nice little action beats. 2 out of 5. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments if you like Superman 3. I'm sure there's got to be some of you out there. I ain't one of them. Yeah. Thank you for watching this review, and until next time, cracking.